Hi, Tracy Lewis. I am back for my third part of the Campground Membership series, and we are still on Thousand Trails. I actually had already videoed this in the middle of part 1 and 2, and it was out of place, so I'm redoing it, and I hope I caught everything. Luckily, I already had all the points to follow, which is why I created a presentation. So, what we're going to talk about are tips and tricks of being a member and the various parks rules, as well as possibly test drive their website because there are some really cool parts to the website to know about. And that's if we have time. So first we're going to go through some tips. The very first tip that we learned is for reservations. When you go online and you're a full-timer and you're going on to do a 3-week linear stay, the only thing that the online system can do is look for a start to finish single spot. It does not have the intelligence of picking and choosing a variety of spots to make up your full 3-week stay. So don't think because you get a red line that says this site is not available, there are no sites available, that is, that you will not be able to get in. You call the call center. So the call center people are wonderful. They are very good at what they do, and they know all the little tricks and in and outs, and they can chain for you multiple spots so that you have a multi-part reservation. I've had as many as 5 reservations make up my 3-week stay. The other thing that's really important to note is when you come to a park, the rangers aren't involved in reservations, so you can't really have them help you with a reservation. You can definitely spontaneously pull in and tell them you don't have a reservation, you'd like to stay, and they will happily do the best they can, but they will likely send you back to the reservations with a phone call and have you figure out what it is that you want to do and how long that you want to stay. So that's just something to be aware of. Don't torture the poor rangers. You know, they have enough to deal with when they have like a 400 to 600 to even up to 800 site campground to take care of. So the reservations part really is not their expertise. So the first thing as a full-timer that you're going to notice is that the full-timers pretty much stay there 3 weeks. They might have the Odyssey and stay 4 weeks, but pretty much I've noticed the behaviors are the 3-week stay. Often they will have their full 3 weeks, but they'll pull out the night before. And I don't know if that means that they have a home to go to. I don't know what it is, but they will often leave later in the day. They do not leave by checkout time. The other thing is that lots of folks pull in before check-in time, which is also odd to me, but they do. My husband and I, we try to check out before 11 and we check in whenever we get there. We don't, you know, sometimes we'll get up really early and try to get there right at noon, but most of the parks we're staying in the off season and we already have a reservation, so in theory we're guaranteed a spot. The other thing is that we noticed when we were in Oregon staying on the coast, there's actually 4 campgrounds along the coast that you can stay at. And so I guess there's 3 along the coast. And then there's a couple up in Washington. So you'll find that people actually live along the coast and they just rotate from park to park. So we saw like the same blue truck for all 3 of the parks in Oregon that we stayed at. They were just following the same rotation that we were, and they were just off by a couple days. So that's just kind of something you'll notice. So you actually want to be kind to your fellow full-timers. You don't want to irritate people because you will likely see them again, I guess. They're kind of like your real neighbors that you would have at your house, that you would want to try to have a good rapport with them. All right, so here's rules. There are 6 or so parks. They're smaller. They have 2-week max stays during their peak season. We did not know this. It just wasn't something that had come up, and we wanted to stay in Monroe at Thunderbird, and they would only let us stay there for 2 weeks, and that kind of messed up our plans because even though there are 4 parks in our general area, the Monroe location was very much closer to the activities we had going on during that 3 weeks. And for 1 week, we had to move way up to Mount Vernon, and it was kind of a pain, but we learned and now we know. And the peak seasons vary. Down in the south, the peak seasons are in the wintertime. Up in Seattle, the peak season is like June 15th to September 15th. from park to park. So your member benefits don't ever change, but how the parks operate do vary. So that was also something frustrating for us. The day of the gate code, if it changes at all, varies. One will be on Tuesday every week, one will be Wednesday every week, one will be once a month on a Thursday. You just never can rely on always knowing when the gate code is going to change. Whether or not a park accepts mail deliveries varies wildly. Some of them charge, some of them don't. Some of them take USPS mail, some of them only take UPS and FedEx. Some of them fill propane, some of them don't have a propane station. And the times and the days when they fill propane also varies wildly. You just have to ask. Whether or not they charge for guests, whether or not they charge for 50 amp, I have found more sites do not charge for 50 amp than do. I'm in one right now. The last two that we've been in, they haven't even mentioned 50 amp. And we don't have 50 amp, so we never have to ask. But if you look at, like I'm looking at the Lake Tawakoni park layout, and it has no mention of 50 amp at all. So I'm wondering if they just don't have 50 amp. But the previous one we were at, which was also in Texas, did have 50 amp, but there was no charge for 50 amp. So those are just things that you have to remember to have. If it's important to you to know where the 50 amp is, and if you have to pay for it, you need to ask. You can call in advance. Oops. Whether you turn in your paperwork when you leave, more often than not, they don't need your paperwork when you leave. So you don't have a little box on the exit side of the ranger building that says, turn in paperwork here. When everybody has a different rule of what you need to fill in. One place, the last place we were at, Lake Whitney, just said, hey, give us a call and tell us what site you're in. Here's our number. And they pointed on the map to the ranger station phone number, and we just called and said what site we were in. Others want you to fill out a paperwork, because maybe they don't immediately have time to jot a note, the Lewis's stayed in slot, A16. So sometimes you'll have to turn in a slip. This one place actually wouldn't give us our hanging mirror thing with the code until we turned in our slip, because they had a problem with people never turning in their slips. So just be ready for the individual parks rules to vary. More info to know. All right, so what happens when your park is full? There are options. In theory, I have been told, though I've yet to have to use it, that you can come into any Thousand Trails and they will not send you away. They will put you in what they call overflow if necessary. And overflow might mean you just have electric. It might be you're stuck in their parking lot and they pull out a power line to you, and that's all you get until there's a free spot for you to move to. When we went to Pacific City for the eclipse, there were 2 gaps in time, but we just stayed a full 3 weeks, which in theory they should not have allowed us to do, but they did, because once you're in for like 7 days, you're supposed to be out 7 days. But we were trying for the 3 weeks, so the system, the operator who helped us, left us with the 2 gaps, and every single day we called looking for a cancellation. And by the end of our 3 weeks, we had filled in with cancellations, and we never had to leave, and we never had to go to overflow, but we were totally ready to get moved to overflow if need be. So there are options. And here's a couple of other just side notes. When you want to wash your vehicle, it's easier. You can go take your truck to a car wash, but you can't really take your motorhome or your fifth wheel or your big trailer. So some of them charge money, some of them don't allow it at all, and some of them don't charge. In Washington State, for the most part, you can just wash, water is plentiful there. So be sure to know what the rules are. We have actually we got stuck under a tree in San Benito in California. It was 100+ degrees every night. So we stayed under that darn tree, and it dropped sticky goo on our trailer and our truck. So we actually sponge bathed, I like to call it, our rigs by using AC water, which we collected in a collapsible bucket. And that worked well for us. It was a lot of work, but we just really wanted to be in the shade and did not want to be stuck in the sun in 110-degree weather. Another big tip that I think is important before you head to a particular Thousand Trails, go online and read the reviews, the Google reviews, the TripAdvisor reviews. When you stay at 1,000 Trails, they want you to use TripAdvisor, so you're going to find more responses in TripAdvisor, and they're pretty extensive. And if you're curious about cell reception for AT&T versus Verizon, type the word Verizon in the review. Um, TripAdvisor has a search mechanism which is really helpful. You can find out what the Wi-Fi is really like if you don't have your own cell service and you want to use the Wi-Fi. Some Wi-Fis are really bad, some of them are really good. If you're worried about the state of repair of the campground itself, you want to know if like half of the campground is getting upgraded to 50 amp and so there's not as many spots as normal. Go ahead and go online and read the reviews and the timeliness. So that's just been really helpful for us. And the biggest thing of all is the park map that you get, that's the colorful flyer, has in it the map of the campground layout, like the loops and the sitemap legend. All of that particular page is available online for you to download as a PDF. It is very informative. Sometimes it doesn't give you quite the details that you want, but we have now, I think this is our 20th park probably now, and we have collected every single PDF along the way and find them to be a wonderful source of information. I think at this point I can toggle out to the internet and give you a quick tour of, oops, right here. It is not working for me, is it? Okay, so I want to show you really quick the campground website. It's thousandtrails.com, and that's where you want to go as a member. There's another website called RV on the Go, I believe, and you do not want to use that. That's for non-members. So you want to go to 1,000 Trails, and the biggest helpful is map search. I like to be able to go look at the map and drill in. Like I want to look at Washington State here. The blue is Encore property. Encore is not typically, you might get some Encores with your membership nowadays, but for the most part, like our older membership, we got 60 green of the 81 available. And we had to go through and figure out which of the 60 are ours. And if we try to make a reservation and one of them isn't ours, it'll just give us a big bill. And so that's how we know it's not one of ours. Okay, so when you see one you want, you click on it and you click on learn more, or see now you can't click on the image. This is, old school. You can't click on the image and you can't click on the bold word that you would think would be that you click. You must click on learn more to go into the page about that site. Important things for me about the site. I do not know why it's not loading up all the way. It's still loading. I'm just being patient and waiting. Okay, number of sites is important. I want to know if it's open year-round. A lot of the winter in California, the ones in the mountains, they close October 1st. So it's really important that you know when they're open. This ranger station is who you want to call specifically ahead of time if you want to know about mail delivery options. Where's the USPS mail nearest to it, so that you know which one you should do general delivery if you're having your mail forwarded. And the biggie, Campground Map, which says download because it is a PDF, but it actually will load up on the screen. So if I click on this map, it's a PDF, it's going to load up. And okay, in this particular case, this is Leavenworth and it's awfully small. But if it's really important to you to know which ones are the full hookup sites, the light blue here is full hookup, which means it does include sewer. And you can see that probably over half of the park is non-sewer. So that's really important for my husband and I to know. Now, here's another one I had preloaded. This is an example of a very small campground that has the 50 amp very clearly labeled. If they have them clearly labeled, you might get charged the $5 a night, versus the 30 amp, and then the hot pink ones are no sewer. Now for this, If it's 116 sites, some are for tents and some are cabins. Maybe you have a total of 100 RV sites, only 2 of them here, 107 and 108, are not sewer. So those are just really important advanced things that you can do to know where you're going to go and what kind of amenities you're going to have. So that is pretty much it for this. The next part is the thank you, and we're going to, after this, go on to the smaller memberships and then tie the whole thing together. Now this is actually ending up being in parts because I wanted to be as detailed as I possibly could be to just give you the feeling of saying, hey, I'm comfortable with this. This is for me. This isn't for me. Short of actually going there, you're not going to know whether for you Thousand Trails is the right thing, but at least you're getting some details from somebody who's been in the system extensively, and that might just help you try to make a good decision. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I thank you very much for watching.